let's consider, what do we do if we want to implement project governance, but we don't want to use tools? We don't want to use project management software. We don't want to create a PMO just for this project. So I call this informal governance. And in many ways, informal governance is just as important as the formal governance. You need both. So let's have a look at a case study of informal governance. And it's actually not a success story. I call this case Techmedia. It's published in the standards handbook I talked about earlier. It's also published in the textbook I talked about earlier from Wiley. Now, Techmedia is a very old company. It's been around for over 100 years, and their processes are very, very set, very, very stable. Getting them to change is really difficult. So they had a new CEO, and the new CEO was from the finance industry, and he was driving the organization to change, and he wanted to list on the stock exchange. And he was using technology as a way of getting this organization to change its processes and become more effective. So he was using software. And they had an issue. About the year 2000, they had what we call the Y2K crisis, when they were worried that the IT systems wouldn't be able to cope going from the year 1999 to the year 2000. So even though it's a little bit old, this case, it's still very interesting. And they needed to make a decision. How are we going to cope with this technical issue? There was an option of spending as little as $250,000, $250,000, to fix the software with a workaround. And the other alternative was to spend $10 million and buy an all singing, all dancing ERP system. So they said, oh, which one will we use? Which one will we use? And they had a working committee of all the senior executives, and they were flown all around the world to see which product was going to be the best for them so that they could handle Y2K. And they decided, we'll go for the Rolls Royce. We'll go for the top product. We'll go for an ERP system. And so they did. And they presented their recommendation to the board. And in this board, I'm sorry, this is a political board, but I'd like you to, I'd like you to imagine that this is the board of Techmedia. And they were thinking, shall we accept this recommendation or not? $10 million is a lot of money to spend on software. And they said no. So what the management did is they went away to get some consultants, and the consultants said, no. Even though you're spending the $10 million, you'll get at least $6 million of benefits back. So we think it's a good purchase for you, at least 6 million and possibly 12. We're being very conservative. So the board hummed and hawed and considered this for a long time, and they thought, okay, we'll do it. So they implemented the project in 2 phases. The first phase was implementing it to meet the Y2K problems. And the second phase was to realize the $6 million of benefits. And they managed the phase 1 really well. They became a reference site for the rest of the world. They were as fast as anyone in the whole world, and other people came to see them, to see how they did it. And then they went on. And in phase 1, they talked about, we had 23 systems. So we're going to merge all the data from these 23 systems into one ERP. So this was a technical reason. It was not the reason that the board accepted and agreed on. So there was a bit of a conflict here. The people in the organization thought it was a technical solution to a technical problem, Y2K. This phase 2 of the project, when they were supposed to realize the benefits, what happened is that people got tired. They worked really, really hard for phase 1, but they lost sight of what they were actually trying to achieve, which was $6 million of benefits. And when they were asked, why did you let this happen? Why did you let that happen? One of the senior managers said, well, actually, it's less important. Actually, it's the reason why the board accepted the project, but they had managed to lose sight of what they were actually trying to achieve. And what happened is that one of the senior managers thought they had made the wrong decision. He thought the $10 million software package was the wrong package completely. He would have preferred to have only spent $250,000 and just solved the Y2K problem and finished and moved on. And a third person at the senior management table was just not interested. I'm too busy doing another project. I don't have time to worry about this stupid ERP system. So the whole steering committee and the top managers were really not on the same page. I think every time they met, every time there was a governance meeting, they could have used my governance checklist. Are we clear on our outcomes? Is there a consistent understanding of the outcomes? Have our outcomes evolved? It moved from Y2K to $6 million of benefits. Is our project priorities consistent with our corporate objectives? Actually, it wasn't. It wasn't. That ERP was not strategic to the organization at all. They could have knocked the project out right at the very beginning. Once they started the project, they should have answered the second question. Are we sure we understand how much change is required? And with people refusing to participate, too busy doing other things, change would have been highlighted as a very big issue in this project. So they could have used 6Q governance at every project meeting, every steering committee meeting. They could have asked the governance questions and realized, even if they didn't realize it at the beginning, they would have realized that sometime, wait a minute, this project is going off track. We need to work out, do we continue? Do we not continue? Do we need to change? So they could have worked out how to modify the project to deliver the $6 million. And in fact, it was never $6 million. It was always 12, but they never considered that they were trying to be conservative. In the end, they only realized 3 of those $6 million. So informal governance is as important as formal governance. The formal governance provides reports. The informal governance requires that you act on the reports, that you act on the information. So let's finish this off. Monitoring has 2 aspects to it. You can have formal ways of monitoring. You can have a project management office. You can have your auditors, your internal auditors or your external auditors coming in and asking the 6Q governance questions. You could have consultants coming in and asking the 6Q governance questions. And as they come in, you need to complement this with a project culture, which asks the questions and discusses the questions and does something about it when the answers are not what they expect. Culture is very, very important. It's crucial to making this work. And finally, at the project steering committee, you need to have those 6 questions asked every single time. They are regular agenda items. By asking those questions, you get to correct as the project is proceeding. In the beginning, it might all be right, or maybe it was never right, and you recognize some way through the project, wait a minute, we started on the wrong track. Maybe we should cancel before it's too late. Once you have started, you can say, what are the benefits? Yes. Are we doing enough? No. Then we work out how to do the additional changes to get the benefits that we realize. So monitoring has both a formal aspect and an informal aspect. I hope this presentation has been helpful to you. Please like or comment so that I can answer any questions that have arisen in your mind as you've been listening to this presentation. Thank you very much.